It's the late 16th century. Spain and Britain are in the middle of what is called the Anglo-Spanish War. The war began when in 1585 England chose to support the Dutch in their rebellion against Spanish rule in the Netherlands. In an attempt to cripple the Spanish military, the English would seize Spanish ships that carried gold and supplies that would help either the Spanish economy or military.
Many historical figures were involved. Elizabeth I, who is the Queen of England and Ireland, and is also called the Virgin Queen, since she was never married, resigned from November 17, 1558 to March 24th of 1603. She was an important figure for the defeat of the Spanish Armada. She didn't have a big kingdom, but she was very smart at making decisions, like establishing the 39 Articles of 1563, which was a compromise between Roman Catholicism, and establishing the East India trade at the end of 1599. During her reign, she was seen as unfit to govern due to her being a woman. Instead, men were seen more dominant in the position of ruler. Another historical figure in this battle is Francis Drake. During his early life, he joined the Hawkins family fleet, which hunted ships from the French and began to trade slaves in the early 1560s. A couple of years later, he commanded his own ships in 1568 and began to trade his own slaves illegally in the Spanish colonies in the Caribbean. Later, he began many voyages to the West Indies, which caught the attention of Queen Elizabeth I, in which she was also invested in the slave trade. Then, in 1595, Queen Elizabeth sent Francis Drake and Sir John Hawkins, not the college, with...
Originally, Elizabeth I instructed Sir Francis Drake to attack both Panama and Puerto Rico since they were both strong sources of income for Spain. Additionally, seizing Puerto Rico would establish English influence in the Caribbean, and Puerto Rico had a strategic location as a military island in the Caribbean, so it was of utmost importance that the English conquer the island and that the Spanish defend it. Sir Francis Drake's fleet sailed across the Caribbean en route to Puerto Rico. However, one of the ships from his fleet was captured by the Spanish admiral Pedro Tello de Guzman. After interrogating the crew, Guzman rushed to Puerto Rico and began preparations for the defense of San Juan.
The attack primarily took place on the waters near San Juan as an English attempt to invade the island, led by Francis Drake. Drake and his fleet attempted to disembark at the island of San Juan through El Cambron on the eastern end of the island, but failed. It can also be said that part of the battle took place in the island of San Juan, as this was where the Spanish fleets were anchored, defending the city.
The Spanish fleet stationed in San Juan had quite the repertoire of commanders, from Admiral Pedro Tello de Guzman and the formidable Gonzalo Mendez de Cancio, who years prior breached Sir Francis Drake, to Captain Sancho Padro de Dumbo, who participated in this planned Spanish invasion of England. Lastly, we see the governor of the island at the time of the attack, Governor Pedro Suarez. To protect the island, these commanders were given 5 Spanish frigates, 700 soldiers to defend the ports, and 800 sailors to supplement the ship complement. In comparison, the English had a much larger invasion force, from having 25 ships at their disposal to having a competent 2,500 foot soldiers and sailors, having the dreaded Sir Francis Drake at the head of it all.
A large civil population were quickly indoctrinated into the Spanish army and given arms to fight the foreign invaders. This included from the people living among the walls of San Juan and the slaves and lower-class citizens living outside the walls as well. Early on in its construction, the new fort was put to the test. The one and only Sir Francis Drake conducted an assault on San Juan in 1595. Since Drake had established a reputation for invincibility, the first-generation Spanish defenses were seen as being significantly challenged by his attack. The Spanish, though, had luck on their side. A totally unexpected loss for the English was brought about by a Drake miscalculation and the valor of the fort's defenders. This triumph was praised in Spain, which saw its sign as of the fort's significance and the difficulty it posed to would-be invaders. The entrance to the Spanish Empire was established at Castillo San Felipe del Morro. From the Anglo-Spanish War, this was the only successful attack on the harbor from Sir Francis Drake and Hawkins. The English were later barraged by Spanish military forces as they entered the Escambron Bay. This fruitless effort to enter the bay forced a change in the English military strategy to enter the island by land instead of forcing a direct attack on the San Juan Bay and La Fortaleza. To this cause, in 1598, an underwater chain was built between Isla de Cabra and the El Morro stronghold that meant to prevent ships from entering the harbor.